Hey listeners, we're nearing the end of our 15th anniversary fundraising campaign, and we need your help to meet our goal. This campaign offers you a chance to win a unique food and music experience in one of the most exciting cities in America. Here's how it works. Donate to HRN and you'll be entered to win dinner for two and 2 tickets to a concert in one of 8 amazing cities: New York, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Nashville, Las Vegas, Charleston, Ardmore, Pennsylvania, and Asheville. All donations support our work educating food system storytellers. And when you donate, you can choose one of those cities and you'll be entered to win dinner and 2 tickets to a show. So help us reach our goal and enter to win dinner and a show in the city of your choice. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15. Thank you.
This episode is brought to you by Gustiamo, the online store for Italian ingredients and pantry staples. Learn more at gustiamo.com.
Welcome to the Grape Nation, your weekly wine journey. Our guest is Jaimee Motley. We'll talk to Jaimee about her wines, Stony Hill, and more. We'll taste the Massa Claret for our weekly wine sip. I'm your host, Sam Ben-Ruby. Stay with us for the Grape Nation on the Heritage Radio Network. We bring wine to the people. After growing up around a restaurant family and finishing college in Maryland, Jaimee headed west to pursue the arts. Jobs at Locanda and RN74 in San Francisco changed her course, where she found her love for wine. Jaimee interned in Europe, went on to assist Pax Molly, started her eponymous wine label, and was made winemaker of storied Stony Hill Vineyard in 2020. Jaimee makes a very serious but drinkable wine, avoiding chasing any trends. Welcome to the Grape Nation, Jaimee.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're talking to Jaimee remotely. We're talking to her via Zencastr. Jaimee, where are you right now?
I'm in a beautiful historic library room at the Stony Hill Estate.
Ah, very nice. Which is where?
Stony Hill is located on the Spring Mountain AVA in Napa Valley, California. So we're on the east side of the valley. And it's a beautiful AVA, and we're at about 900 feet. We're on kind of the lower portion of the estate right now.
Nice. We're going to get into that in a few minutes. All right. Just so our listeners have some context and an idea where you came from, give me a brief background on your journey through life and wine that brought you ultimately west and eventually starting your own label and Stony Hill. And we'll talk about the individual projects in depth more, but give me a chronology to the current.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I moved out to California in 2007. I grew up on the East Coast in Maryland. My family, we're a restaurant family. All of my siblings run our family's restaurants in Maryland. So I basically grew up there. On my sick days off from school, I was hanging out in the office or in the kitchen with my mother. And it's really just been a forefront of how I was raised in our family. I went to University of Maryland, College Park. I studied painting and photography. I also sorry?
Perfect preparation.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. All the sciences.
Right.
And I played lacrosse, Division I lacrosse there. So I'd have to.
Wow, that's a powerhouse area.
It is. It really is. I would say lacrosse kind of prepared me for many, many different factors in my life. But yeah, when I graduated from University of Maryland, I moved out to California. I was accepted to University of California, Berkeley to get my Master's of Fine Arts in painting. I wanted to teach in college, and then I realized, wait, let me take a step back and decide what I really want to do. So I didn't end up pursuing graduate school, and I worked my way up in restaurants and in hotels, basically all facets of hospitality in San Francisco. So I lived in San Francisco from 2007 to 2011, and that's where I was able to be on the opening team at Laconda. And then I worked at RN74 for a while, and it was at RN74 where I started my first harvest in Sonoma County with Dylan and Toby Sheldon of Sheldon Wines. So I would work with them 4 days a week and then work at RN74 the rest of the week. So it was with
Raj Parr, right?
Yes. Raj was there. And that's really where I fell in love. I was exposed to obviously incredible Burgundies and wines from all over the world, but that is really where my interest was sparked for old school California Cabernets from the 60s and 70s. And at the same time, we had a more approachable list for guests, and that's where I had my first Mongoose and Chenin that really struck me. So I would say RN74 was a really special place and kind of where I think my career took off.
Right. So take me from RN74. You were heading north a little to work, at a winery. What happens? How does that progress?
Yeah. So after 2011, my first vintage, I realized this is the direction I wanted to go in. I met two women winemakers when I was at Laconda, Angela Osborne from A Tribute to Grace and Toby from Sheldon Wines. And I realized these women were so inspirational, and I could have gone the sommelier route or production vineyards. And just growing up outside, riding horses, playing lacrosse, I like to be hands-on and in nature. So I knew this was the direction I wanted to go. And the 2011 harvest with Sheldon's confirmed that. So after that, I worked in New Zealand at Villa Maria. 2012, I came back in 2013 and worked with John Raytek, who was then the winemaker of Laconda and also Seritas.
Right.
Went back.
John's been on the show.
Oh, he has. Yeah, he's
he makes stunning wines. Yeah,
incredible wines. It was one of the hardest harvests I worked, but I learned so much, and I was really, really honored to be a part of his team at that time.
So far, so good.
Yeah, and went back to New Zealand in 2013 and worked for probably the tiniest winery in New Zealand called Bell Hill, who also make really stunning Pinot Noir and Chardonnay out of the Waipara region in the South Island. And from there, I worked for PAX. And meanwhile, I was going to Europe every year for 3 to 4 weeks and tasting and walking vineyards and really learning about viticulture and winemaking from domains in France and Italy and things like that. So I was kind of combining my education with work and study. I took classes for viticulture and enology, but I never had a formal degree.
Right.
I had about a year and a half. I worked for Big Basin Vineyards in Santa Cruz Mountains, which was really credible, all estate grown fruit. And then, landed at PAX full time in 2015 as his assistant winemaker. And I was there for 5 years until 2019 in December.
So tell me we may have time to talk about PAX and that whole environment and what's going on there, the Eric Asimov column story. But what's the transition? PAX says to you, or you say to PAX, you should make your own wines, or how does it come, that Jaimee Motley Wines comes about? Right.
PAX has always been incredible. He's fostered so many new wines, upcoming winemakers. I mean, it's a really rare thing. And there's no there's no limits. I mean, he'll share vineyards. I mean, him and Scott Schultz have shared vineyards. We shared our Chenin Blanc vineyard. I mean, he's really open and giving, and invites that creativity. And I think it really promotes a healthy work environment. And yeah, it was incredible. I wouldn't have been able to do it really any other way. So I was able to work. Go ahead.
Did he encourage you, or it was a mutual thing? I mean, how does that happen?
As far as starting my own winery, that came from me. That was something I wanted to do and express myself through the vineyards I work with and the wines I make. So that came internally, but he gave me a platform and allowed me to make my wines alongside of his and leave harvest some days, a half day, so I could drive to Monterey. I mean, these things wouldn't happen at most wineries. And he's been able to do that for a handful of other producers. And it's Martha's been on the show. Patrick's been on the show. Oh, great.
We've been able to, talk. Eric Asimov, who, did that story, was on the show.
Right.
So you said that was 2015?
That's when I started full time with him. And at that point, Scott Schultz from Julie Lade and we shared the assistant winemaker role until Scott left in 2018.
And when do you declare your own winery? What year was that?
2016, I made my first fruit, Chenin Blanc from Norgard Vineyard in Mendocino, and Mondeuse from Bien Nacido in Santa Maria.
Okay. All right. So then you're doing that and things kind of grow and progress. And when does the Stony Hill thing come up?
Stony Hill, the job was offered to me end of last year, so end of 2020.
Did you see that coming? I mean, not at all? Really? I mean, you got the call from Carlton, or who, I forgot the owner's name.
Yes, Carlton, Galen, Lawrence.
Galen, right?
Yes, but Carlton, he gave me a call when the Stony Hill was under contract, and we had just gotten through 2 rounds of fires, and our son Leon, who was born August 13th last year, was a few months old. And I mean, it was just such an incredible opportunity to be a part of this historic state. The wines that have always been made here by Mike or the McRae's have just resonated with me. That's stylistically, this vineyard, no matter who the winemaker is, it really holds true to the type of wines it wants to produce. And they really lend a hand to the wines I like to make, or the vineyards I like to work with anyway.
So I mean, I think this plays exactly into your philosophy and how you make wines. They were one of the early wineries. I mean, we're talking going back, and the reputation Napa got, making restrained, minimalist, and these structurally balanced wines, right?
Right.
That played right into what you want to do.
Absolutely.
And so I guess when you got the call, you were, more than flattered, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've got Riesling planted in 1948, head trained vines, and the Cabernet, I mean, that was a newer planting. I mean, the first Cabernet planting was in 2009, but I mean, historically it's a white wine vineyard. We have transitioned it more to red, but yeah, I mean, the history here, and it's just a rarity to work with vines of this age in Napa, or really anywhere. I mean, through Jaimee Motley Wines, I've tried to work with the oldest vines I can, and I've been lucky enough to be able to do that. But this was kind of resurrecting this the Napa that I fell in love with drinking at RN74 from the 60s and 70s.
So I want to sort of mix in a bunch of different things, including that. For over a year, I've been asking all my guests, about the effects in life during the pandemic. We just discussed, you had an interesting twist. You took on an additional job during the pandemic.
Right.
People were losing their jobs. Industries were going out of business. They were working from home. Nobody knew what was going to go on. You have a kid, you take a new job, plus you're running your own winery. So that alone is very fulfilling. But, talk to me about the pandemic itself, and then you can't avoid talking about the fires. Tell me about the challenges of the last year a little.
Oh, absolutely. For me, the pandemic, I think for a lot of us, I'm sure I share this with, it really had me look inward, look at, what I was doing with my life on this planet, in my industry. And, I can't help but realize that the wine industry is so incredible, impactful in it. And it's a cultural element. It can be a religious element. It's a community element. But it tends to have a large footprint. It can use up a lot of resources if you're not careful. And whether that's in agriculture or in the winery or in sales.
Right.
So I can't help but not think about that. And I always did. I mean, I'd been working with organic vineyards for a long time, as does PAX. But that's just kind of been at the forefront, given this time to kind of slow down and looking at how I want my mark is in the industry and how I can best take care of our natural resources through it. So one thing is Stony Hill. It's an estate vineyard. It's historic. And just being able to be a steward of the land here is really the most exciting part to me. I mean, I don't own it, but I pretend I do. And I just am so excited to be here and bring in, it's been organic since 2019, but bring in biodynamic farming. Regenerative is definitely a buzzword, but, no-till and bringing in animals and everything. I'm just excited to be at an estate every day, work with it, and get to know the land intimately. And, we really want to rework a lot of aspects, like work with American glass that's been recycled, and just looking at every
Right.
facet of the estate and our business and trying to be as thoughtful as possible.
So when you say you don't own it, it sounds like you have a heavy hand in kind of what goes on every day,
Yes.
as far as moving towards regenerative farming. You mentioned organics. I mean, are you moving towards biodynamics seriously for certification, or that's
Yes.
not necessary?
Yeah, we'll have that in the next year. And I share this vision. Lori Tabouleh is the estate director here, and she's actually a good friend of mine and worked harvest with me at PAX in 2019. But she's studying for her MW, but she's incredible, and we're both very like-minded, and it's just really fun to have this creative outlet the two of us can work with. And yeah, they've given us a lot of leeway to really show through our vision, and yeah, it's really exciting.
This could be the prototype for Napa, which seems to be lagging in sustainability, regeneration, organics, biodynamics. You could be sort of the model and prototype that it could be done. You can make great wines, and, all your inward soul searching, everybody else should be doing the same.
Right. I think, I would like to join. I think the ratio of that, maybe the scale is definitely tilted, but I have to say I'm following in the footsteps of people like, Steve Mathiasen or
Right.
Tegan or Kathy Corson. So there's been many legendary
Right.
people ahead of me that have laid down the foundation that I'm still learning from. But I do want
Even
to
guys
follow.
like Nate Reddy, even
Oh,
up in
absolutely.
Oregon, Washington, that whole thing, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking just Napa, but yeah, there's tons of people outside of it, and yeah, I'm still a student of it all and learning, but that's what I've always enjoyed about something I learned from PAX and all the winemakers there, and the energy I've kind of brought over to Stony Hill is just following what you're passionate about and like figuring out how to do things. Figuring it out as you go, and experimenting, I think, is really
What
cool.
When you got the call, I'm just curious. You had a kid. It's the pandemic. You're busting your ass on your own winery. It sounds like an opportunity you don't want to pass up. But when you say yes, do you sit there and go, "What did I get myself into?" I'm not worried, but But it just seems like a lot. I mean, did you have that anxiety for a minute?
Of course, yeah. I mean, that's kind of. I've always pushed everything to the max, and I've always had a pretty full plate, and I'm used to operating on that level. And now having a child, I feel my work is even more efficient. I don't have time to waste or to not be giving it my all. So it's actually given me more structure and more purpose in that way. But one thing you also asked about the fires. So Jaimee Motley Wines is kind of it's going to have a break because in 2020, because of the fires, I only made rosé. So I made 2 tons out of 25 that I would normally make. And I actually lost my physical vintage from 2019. I was aging all of my barrels on an offsite facility in Santa Rosa, and the glass fire actually burnt the building down. So,
I didn't realize you were part of that. Yeah.
Yes. So I don't have a lot of wine to sell or to make for the next few years for my own brand, and I'm taking a step back. I'll make about 6 tons this year, but I am kind of reevaluating the direction I want to go and things like that. So it's a good.
Wait. When you say that, does that involve the fact that the fires had an incredible impact? Production. Things were literally ruined. That on top of the fact that now you're also working, full time at a winery where eyes are on you. I mean, does that change things a little too?
It does. I mean, I was hired here and being able to make my wines alongside of Stony Hill. So that was the agreement. And it's more that, I lost 2 years basically 2 vintages, and it just takes a while to rebuild. I don't have the same capital and everything. And just trying to streamline my life and exactly what vineyards I want to invest in. Now that I'm at Stony Hill every day, I realize, and I always knew this, but realize the importance of like being with a vineyard day in and day out. And it's not realistic for that to happen with all my vineyards I source from for Jaimee Motley Wines, but just really making sure that I deepen the connection with every vineyard I'm working with.
Yeah. It's the Stony Hill thing is a good thing. Now, it's a place you'd want to be anyway. Plus, it gives you that cushion for you to really figure out, your wines and continue, at the level that you want. I've been following you and a bunch of other people, and to me, it seems to be that there's a rise in California of younger. I always hate to pick certain words, but sometimes you can't get, like natural wine or whatever, but like younger experimental producers, that are definitely shifting style, making more terroir-driven wines and site-specific wines, looking at different microclimates. Not to mention, and in your case, you're a good example of starting to use and introduce, cool varietals. Mm-hmm. So 2 things. Stony Hill is pretty staunch in what they've made. Are you going to introduce varietals there? And this younger movement, where all the people you had mentioned before, whether it be Tegan or Matthew, all these other guys, do we agree this is here to stay and will grow, and that the consumer will embrace it, continue to embrace it?
To embrace the more obscure varieties.
I wouldn't call them obscure anymore, but Napa, Sonoma's known for Pinot, Cab, Chardonnay. The introduction by all these winemakers. Will there be traction?
I think so, definitely, and I think that's what I love about the California, and there's always this kind of new energy and pushing the envelope and maybe it's hard to really understand a place when you have so many different types of varieties going in, so many different styles of winemaking. But I still feel like we're in our infancy of figuring out where varieties should be planted. And with that, the climate is changing dramatically as we speak in front of our eyes. So within our lifetime. So I think bringing in new varieties is going to be more widely accepted. For instance, I brought some Gamay plantings to Stony Hill, which I'm really excited about.
Wow.
We won't do a single varietal bottling, but we've done, because I'm working with a lot of Bordeaux varieties already on property. We're doing a kind of homage to terrain styled field blend, which will have Gamay, Côte, and Cab Franc in it. And to me, something like Gamay can work in Napa. People might say, oh, is it too warm? But it's a lighter skinned variety picked on acid, and it doesn't need as much phenolic ripening. So I think it's actually, as the climate warms up, lighter red varieties can adapt to it because you're picking them earlier. So it really depends region by region, but things like that. A lot of people have already told me they're not sure about Napa and Gamay and Napa, but I'm very confident it's going to do great on this hillside. And yeah, I'm excited to bring a new variety like that to Napa.
So do you? I was thinking before with all the fires and, the interruption and all that, the pandemic, do you do a lot or most of your business via mailing list? I mean, I know you try to get into some restaurants and, you have distribution,
right.
But were you, before, you got knocked back on production, were you able to do a lot of your sales through a mailing list? Is that something that existed? Or?
Yes, I have a mailing list, and that was the majority.
Okay.
And still is majority of how I sell my wine. Right.
What about Stony Hill?
It's funny. So Stony Hill shares that as well. Historically, Stony Hill's been 90% direct to consumer.
Really?
And we're actually going to open up a little bit more to wholesale because, it's.
You want to get it out to certain, venues. Yeah.
Yeah. It's this coveted estate that so many people love and adore, but then a lot of people haven't heard of it. So, opening up a little more to specific markets and accounts, I think we think will be really great for Stony Hill.
Well, that whole Psalm set and, certain places, people, restaurants, are dying to have it. So that's not going to be an issue. It's a matter of how much do you have enough. Do you think the people that have been drinking Stony Hill for years and years and years will understand and embrace, these new varietals or blends? Or does that play to a newer market, or both?
Right. I hope it can play to both. The client base that's been with Stony Hill for many years, and also a newer market. People are nostalgic, and we're not changing much here, but we are changing little things that we think will only improve the estate. So we're hoping the previous customer list will stick with us, and see where we're going. And it's not straying too far from what has historically been done here. So.
All right. So Jaimee, we have to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk to you about your wines. I want to talk to you about the varietals and a bunch of other things. But before we break, I just want you to kind of tick off Stony Hill makes, they're known for their Chardonnay, Cabernet. Just take me through, the wines that they're currently making. I mean, you talked about a Gamay coming, but what are is it just Chardonnay and Cabernet? That's it.
Chardonnay, Cabernet, Riesling planted.
Riesling, right.
Yep. There's a small amount of Gewürztraminer planted in 1959. And
That's
Syrah.
Cool.
And Syrah, actually.
Okay. So those are, it's limited, sort of like what you're doing. All right, Jaimee, we're going to take a break. We're talking to Jaimee Motley from Jaimee Motley Wines, and Jaimee is the winemaker at Stony Hill Vineyard. You're listening to The Grape Nation on Heritage Radio Network. When we come back, we're going to talk about Jaimee's wines and a bunch of other things going on. We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Gustiamo, the online store for ingredients and pantry staples from Italy. Gustiamo's mission is to improve the quality of Italian food in the States. They independently import the best and most authentic food from Italian farmers and food makers, wonderful people dedicated to their land and their traditions. When you're searching for quality Italian pasta, San Marzano tomatoes, and real extra virgin olive oil, Gustiamo has them all. Shop their vinegars, coffees, sweets, and so much more. From northern hilltop hazelnut farmers in Piemonte to southern sea salt millers off the coast of Sicily, Gustiamo works exclusively with small family food companies in Italy. When you shop with Gustiamo, you'll know that your ingredients are authentically Italian and of the highest quality. For our listeners, Gustiamo is offering a 10% discount on your online order with Gusti code HRN. Learn more at Gustiamo.com. That's GUSTIAMO.com.
All right, we're back. We're back with my guest, Jaimee Motley. Jaimee is the proprietor of her own label, Jaimee Motley Wines, and she is the recent, less than a year, winemaker at storied Stony Hill Vineyards. Jaimee, let's talk about your winery. You've settled's the right word. I keep using the wrong words. You're working with a handful of varietals. You're not all over the place with a million different things. Particularly, Chenin Blanc, which I think you do at least a couple of bottlings. Mondouse, which, you don't see a lot of. I think when people think Mondouse on the West Coast, I think they associate you with it, which is kind of cool. You had mentioned earlier when you were at RN74 that was that the first time you were exposed and sort of found this love and interest in these varietals?
It was, yes. They had the Psalms at RN had a really incredible list of more obscure wines, and on that were wines from the Savoie region in France. And I just loved the energy that the variety really has in any of the bottlings. In working with Syrah so much at PAX or at Big Basin or various wineries, they're cousin varieties, Mondouse and Syrah, and I just love the Syrah has more acid and more tannin than Mondouse has a little more tannin and acid than Syrah, and I just love the verviness, the crunchiness to it.
You love acidity, admit it.
I love acidity. I'll say
That's it. That's right. There you go.
Yeah, I can't help myself. And yeah, it was incredible. And Raj connected me with Jim Clendenin, and rest in peace, Jim.
Rest in peace. Yep.
We're sorry to have lost him.
A great force. Yep.
Incredible force, and was so supportive of my career, and I loved talking with him, and he's the one that was able to provide Mondouse for me in 2016. So I got my first ton from him from Biennacito. Jim had the whole acreage of Mondouse at Biennacito, and he would make it for Clendenin family wines or blend it, use it as a blending component. Right. And I would just buy 1 to 2 tons off of him every year. So I got to work with him directly, and I was able the wine from Biennacito, it tastes like Mondouse, and it's got that same kind of crunch, and I just fell in love with it. And it was really incredible. He offered last year. I didn't make a 2020 Mongoose because
No.
by then we'd gone through a series of fires, and to be
Right.
honest, I was ready for the the harvest to be over. But
Right.
I will always remember he called me and said offered to make me the wine for me at his facility, because I didn't have a facility at that point because of the
Wow.
fire. So, I ended up declining, but that always stuck with me. Community.
Any regrets?
I
A
do
little,
actually.
right? Yeah.
You never know. I mean,
You should have just done it.
I
Yeah,
should have.
but you can't. You got to move on. I stumbled on the fact, and I know you're interested, in the past. The stories like at Stony Hill are just very interesting, and Napa's past and all that. I stumbled on the fact that Mongoose and Chenin Blanc sort of had a cool history in Napa. I mean,
Yes.
Chenin was pretty well planted, but in the 80s and before that, people think, oh, Jaimee's making these, kind of obscure varietals. But, quickly tell me about, their place in Napa not that
Right.
long ago.
Exactly. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because that is also why it's intrigued me so much. And I mean, I would be happy to also work with other varieties coming from all over the world, but I loved the history and the roots that Chenin and Mongoose surprisingly have in California, and specifically Napa. I mean, you can talk to Morgan from Bedrock or Tegan, and they've got old vine Mongoose interplanted in Zen vineyards and things like that. So there's an incredible history there, and also with Chenin Blanc was pretty widely planted in the valley. Both varieties, although they come from different regions of France and they're completely different, they have a lot of similarities, which is an unwavering acid potential, which is great for climates such as Napa, and really are able to handle the heat and still bring a lot of elegance to the wine. So yeah, you definitely brought up one of the reasons. Not only they're delicious, but I really love the connection and the history. It's a short history in California, but the history they have in the valley. So
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people, realize that. They just know these big buttery Chardonnays.
Right.
You said when you were at Stony Hill, the property is an amazing storied property, estate grown stuff. The way you do your farming at Jaimee Motley Wines is you select farming partners, right?
Right. Yes.
So how does that come about? I mean, I'm sure there's stuff you want you can't get. I'm sure people come to you. How do you, if you love Mongoose, you're looking for whoever's doing Mongoose. How do you, put your partners together? And I'm sure you have demands on organics and stuff like that control. Tell me a little about farming practices.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, all of my vineyards I work with are organic at a minimum. That's just, and that limits, to be honest, a lot of choices. It also limits choices if you want to work with varieties such as Mongoose, because it's not very widespread. Since I started making wine at Biennacido, making the fruit from there, we've grafted more Mongoose to Rorick's vineyard, Rorick Heritage Vineyard in Calaveras County. So to answer your questions, I'm looking to team up and with people that have a like-minded vision, that are willing to experiment with varieties like Mongoose. So I've been making Mongoose Rosé from Rorick's Vineyard in Calaveras County for 4 years now, and it's actually the rosé is what's made it through the last two fires. So I from 2019, I've only released a rosé, and 2020 will only have released a rosé. So, but working with farmers and knowing the growers and being able to have a relationship with them and really, share the vision. And it's not just my wines, it comes from them as well. So I just having a really great partnership, and picking sites that are really special. I mean, for example, Peter Martin Ray, the Cabernet I make in
legendary.
Yeah, it's a legendary vineyard. It's historic. I mean, Peter Ray, I mean, he was doing all the tractor work at the vineyard up until a couple years ago, and in his 80s. And I got to sit with him and have dinner with him the night before I would harvest and hear stories of the estate. And it's irreplaceable moments like that are just imprints and translate into the wine. So yeah,
But you have a liking or a philosophy about Cabernets. You like high elevation.
Yes, high elevation.
And by going to high elevation grapes, what does that give to you that you like?
It's that mountain tannin that I love. That it definitely can scare some people away, and
Okay.
you have to. It's not for the faint-hearted, but you have to be careful with how you make the wine too. But I just love the crunchy mountain tannins.
Yeah.
Peter Martin Ray's Santa Cruz Mountain AVA, Massa Vineyard, which was the original Durney estate. That was the Cabernet I'm working with from there was planted in 1971. That has a ton of history in Monterey. And yeah, they're considered cooler climate vineyards. So they're not only elevation, but they're pushing the envelope for where Cabernet can be planted. And I just love that. And, I'm not afraid of a little Parazines. I think that's an inherent...
Tell everyone what Parazines are.
So Parazines are a phenolic compound in the grape, and sometimes they can give off a kind of a green flavor.
Right.
Some people say bell pepper.
Bell pepper, right.
Jalapeno.
Stems, right.
Stems, yeah, but it's you don't want too much, but a little bit. I just think is a quality of Cabernet Sauvignon that I love. So, and these mountain vineyards I'm working with, they really, the farming is minimal. I mean, that's something with Cabernet that I think why it does so well in California. And if it's grown more in a head trained kind of old school way with less trellising, able to sprawl, sometimes dry farmed, it really doesn't need a lot of tending to it. It's more self-sufficient. It is able to grow mountainside and really produce beautiful fruit. So that's an element I love about it too. It naturally grows. Of course, there's a human hand in it, but it doesn't need as many passes as other varieties. And yeah, the hillside keeps it cooler, maintains acidity, and yeah, the mountain crunch I just love.
So talk to me about the human hand. There's probably going to be no surprise to these answers, but let's talk about cellar practices. Obviously, you don't dawdle around much with the wines. Tell me your philosophy in the cellar.
Absolutely. This word's probably overused, but yeah, I mean, minimalism and
right. Low intervention.
I try to work with farmers and vineyards that produce really beautiful fruit. And when it comes to the winery, I just have to not mess it up. So that's my philosophy. And I love using whole cluster on reds. I've used whole cluster on a lot of Cabernets, which isn't really common, but it to me it brings so much perfume to the wine. I do extended élevage on white wines sometimes, my Chenions, which I think helps maintain the complexity that I'm looking for. So yeah, I use low sulfur. I don't add anything else typically. Right. I mean, so yeah, low intervention. And to me, the winemaking part is meant to kept simple, pure, and the work is really in the vineyard. And
it's funny you say that because when I started doing the show years ago, there was discussion of that, but now it's just confirmed, and the reality is the wine really starts and ends in the field and how it's farmed and all that. Making wine is not easy, but it's nothing like growing, terrific fruit in the right way. So, I mean,
Absolutely.
that's where we're at. So in a good year, you're making a few Chenin Blancs, you're making the Mondeuse. This year, you're a little behind the eight ball. You're doing some Rosado Mondeuses. You talked about the Cabernet. In a few minutes, we're going to taste another wine that you make called Massa, which is sort of a Bordeaux blend, Cab, Merlot, and I think Cab Franc, right?
Yes.
We'll taste that, and I'll give you a chance to talk about that. Before I want to try to do our wine list with you, but before we do that, I think you have an interesting side business. Are you still in it? You import barrels with Raj Par from Austria?
Yes, I do that too.
What's up with that?
It is.
That's like the description of it is Jaimee Motley imports Austrian barrels with Raj Par to the United States called Stockinger. The answer to that would be what? So tell me what's that about?
Oh, it's been an incredible experience. Raj and I started importing Stockinger in 2016. The Stockinger family is incredible out of Austria. They've been around for 300 years. So this is a really historic, small cooperage. And it's all about craftsmanship. And really, I've never been a big oak person. All the producers I've worked for use minimal oak. And I really had to understand this company and this family before I said I thought this would be a product I could really be behind. But in fact, I am. And I've been over there several times to visit them. But yeah, Raj and I are the U.S. Representatives, U.S. importers, and the company has grown exponentially every year. Now they're a very small cooperage, and the majority of their business is in Europe. But they do allocate us a certain amount of barrels every year. And
so if I'm a wine, I didn't mean to interrupt, but if I'm a winemaker, maybe I can get American barrels from Missouri, or if I can afford French barrels, I'm going to get that depending on, what I want, how new, how oaky. What's the characteristic? Why am I interested in Stockinger if I move forward with that?
Because it's the forests that they work with, German, Austrian, Transylvanian, and also the way they toast the barrels. So it kind of goes hand in hand with the way I make wine, the way Raj makes wine, the way we farm our vineyards, everything. It's really just an extension of that, and the way the Stockinger family thinks about their barrels. And they really are terroir driven, and they want the wine in the vineyard to show through. They're not trying to make their mark with the amount of toasts or the type of forest they're working with. They really want the terroir I love tasting with the Stockingers. They're so much fun, and they're such a talented family. But yeah, so it's a really light, elegant toast. It really brings more structure then aromatics to the wine. So I'm a believer. I mean, I use them for all my barrels.
You do? Okay.
I do. That I can afford. I mean, I'm trickling them into Jaimee Motley wines. Stockinger will have quite a few this year as well. I mean, you can put an entire lot of wine in all new Stockinger, and you wouldn't know it was 100% new oak.
That's very cool.
But they're really pieces that you keep and you collect over a period of time. So it's not turn and burn. You want to.
That's an interesting way to put it. Yeah, it's like an old watch or something. You have it and you want to keep it, and it just keeps going. That's a very cool thing. It's sort of a behind the scenes thing, but I just wanted people to know you were doing that. I want to do our wine list, but before that, I kind of wanted to make a note that I always thought mentorship is an important thing, and I think you are probably one of the most positive products of mentorship. And the people, that you've been exposed to, guys like Raj Par, who you're in business with, Pax, who you are, working with now and, started making wine, the Glaubs, all these people, I don't know if you'd be, Jim Clendenin, who you mentioned. I don't know if you would be, the person and winemaker you are if you weren't touched by all these people. Do you agree? And hopefully you'll give it back.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I feel like everyone you mentioned and more have really supported me and shaped who I am, and I really would not be able to do it without the positive support I've had. And yeah, it's been a really incredible journey, and I hope to still always be a student of wine and lean on these people that have kind of laid the groundwork ahead of me, because I really trust. And yeah,
Yeah,
I'm very fortunate to have the community that I do.
it's a great thing. All right, we're going to move to the wine list. I'm going to ask you 5 questions, just so you know. I've asked the last 200 shows, the last 200 guests, the same 5 questions. So nothing new. Our listeners love to hear about your wine preferences. Be spontaneous. Don't dwell on these answers. We have less than 10 minutes. Plus, I want to spend a few minutes tasting the masa with you. So the first question is, what are you drinking now? What's in your fridge? What are you trying? What are you tasting? Does the seasonal change bring you stuff? You taste stuff besides your own wines? What's Jaimee Motley drinking now?
Oh, absolutely. I would say right now I'm drinking my dear friend's Clémence from Le Large Peugeot out of Vrigny. Her family is a small biodynamic grower producer. They're Meunier-based champagne. And
Nice.
Clémence has been a great friend of mine. She actually lives in Petaluma. So I get access to her wines, but they're really incredible, and their family's producing really pure, beautiful, natural wines.
I don't think anyone has ever given us that answer before. Anything else?
Oh, really? I'm still on a Savoie kick. I know that's really
Okay.
predictable.
No. That's important to you. It hasn't faded yet. I like that.
It hasn't. Yeah, I'm not sick of it. Whether it's Belluard Granger or Monduce, or Ardoisière, I've really loved drinking more of the white wines from the Savoie, and learning about their just the different nuances between the white variety Jacquard and Altesse. And yeah, they can go up against, especially Altesse, I feel like can go up against some of the best Chardonnays I've had.
Right. Those are good answers. And I didn't mention this, but I post all our guests' answers on social media so we could share them with them. All right. Second question, kind of the goofiest question, but it's fun. Jaimee Motley's favorite wine and food pairing. Obviously something you're not going to eat every night, every month, but what's that pairing that just works for you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I would say my favorite pairing would be a Sauvignon-based wine from the Jura, a Sauvignon-based wine with a delicious, like spicy, like a spicy pork dish with Vietnamese noodles or something like that. Like
All right.
where you
That's a
have some
good one.
spice and sweetness
Right.
with the austere Sauvignon is usually a delicious pairing.
I will tell you again, too, that answer is a first. You're going to get champagne and popcorn and oysters and muscadet, but nobody ever said that before. All right. see if you can answer this, and I don't want you to exclude anybody, or it shouldn't be too hard. But do you have a favorite wine restaurant and or bar in the context of you walk in and the wine list is great and interesting, the people are knowledgeable, the vibe in the place is good? Is there anything by you? Is there anything through your travels? Does anything stick out?
Yes. I mean, I was just talking about this place the other day, but Clamato in Paris.
Yes, that's come up before. Terrific.
That has, okay, good. I'm yeah, it's just incredible. The energy there, the freshness of the food, the approachability of the wine list. It's a really special place, and it's timeless, and it just feels like you're in your own world there. And it's just always been an inviting place where everything is at the top level. Everything's delicious, but it's also very welcoming and warm.
I agree with you. And what's cool is not everybody's Clamato, but there are other places like Clamato, which is nice that you could, like Marco Pelletier's place, Vanch, there are all these cool places you could walk into. So Clamato is great. All right, fourth question. Favorite all-time wine? I always say I'm the most redundant guy. By saying I always say I'm the most redundant guy is redundant, so obviously I'm very redundant. But favorite all-time wine? I initially asked people, Jaimee, what's the most expensive rare wine you ever had? Couldn't give a crap about that answer now. What I care about is what's that important wine in your life that changed the way you thought, that put you on a path, that changed, your thinking. What's that wine that had the impact that was important to you up until now? Or a couple, whatever.
To be honest, what stuck out to me is that I think has shaped my path and where I am now, and why I'm sitting in the Stony Hill Library is the 1968 Inglenook Cabernet Sauvignon that was opened for a guest at RN74, but of course we got to taste here and there, and just really blew my mind. The freshness.
It showed well.
Oh, it showed well, and just the complexity and freshness, and it has been imprinted in my head, and it just it's showed me what Cabernet can do in California, and has led me.
That's a great answer, and I'm glad it wasn't some fancy Burgundy or whatever. Good for you, because you are a California winemaker. So props to the old guys. All right, last question. See if you can answer this. Winemakers struggle a little more, but you should have a handle on this. I always ask my guests, recommend to me the best wines, about 15, 20, 22 bucks, a red and a white. You could do categories, like Muscadet is a very delicious cheap white wine. Eric Asimov's, said there's some Chiantis, that are in that, area. And it doesn't have to be Napa or, even within your wheelhouse. But when you think about great value wines for great prices, what comes to mind, white and red?
Portugal all the way.
Totally agree.
Specifically Bairrada region between, or I guess north of Lisbon, on the coast. But I was just blown away by the wines there.
Are those reds and whites? Mostly whites, mostly reds?
They're both.
Okay.
Red in particular, I fell in love with Baga. And the white wine, there's a bunch, but Maria Gomez was the white variety. That I just love.
I'm glad you mentioned. No, I'm glad you mentioned some makers. Because I'll post them. So Portugal, north of Lisbon, Bairrada, reds and whites, and if you see them or get them, they're $20, $21, $18. I mean, we're in that range.
Absolutely. I mean, I think they're going up in price, but they are, I think, some of the most affordable wines in Europe and some of the best, to be honest.
Jaimee, you did an impeccable job on your wine list answers. And like I said, I will post Jaimee's list. All right, we got to wrap the show up. Got to do two things. Got to taste and talk about Jaimee's wines, and then I just have to do a show wrap up, and I want to get some info from you. So Jaimee was kind enough, and I asked her a little late, but she got the job done. And this is for you. I want to help you sell wine or make people more aware. Jaimee sent me the 2018 Massa Vineyard Monterey County wine. It's a claret, and it is, I'll read it, 45% Merlot, 35% Cab, 20% Cab Franc, classic Bordeaux grapes. Jaimee, tell me a little about this wine, why you made it, where you got the grapes, what do we need to know about this?
Oh, absolutely. So, yeah, Massa Vineyard is used to be the old Durney Estate, so it has a lot of
Ah,
history in California. Ian Brand, who I'm sure everyone knows about, is he's curating the vineyard, and he is the one selling and connecting winemakers with the fruit. So, um, I was lucky enough to be able to get into the vineyard in 2018 and start making wine from there. I actually made 3 wines from this vineyard in 2019 that, of course, are not here now from the fires, but that's just to show you how much I love this vineyard and how much I believe in it. It's been organic since the 90s, but this particular bottling has Cabernet planted in the 80s, Cab Franc and Merlot planted in the 90s. And I wanted to do a Bordeaux blend, but it was all co-fermented. So kind of taking the blending element out of it and putting all the grapes together, fermenting it, and seeing how they play off of each other through that. And also, this was meant to be a more fresh style, easy
yes.
to drink. I bottled it after 10 months, released it a year later. So no new oak, just really wanting to work with varieties that can have a lighter touch to them, especially in a cool climate Bordeaux site. So yeah, this vineyard is really special. I also make a 2018 100% Cabernet Sauvignon from the block planted in 1971 that I'll release later this year. I only made
Nice.
about 50 cases of that. So yeah, it's a really special place, and it's really, really deep in Carmel Valley, AVA. It's high elevation, windy roads to get to, but it's worth it when you arrive.
Yeah, I've been tasting it, and I've had it in the glass for a little while. It's delicious. It's a little crunchy. It's not, it's lighter than people perceive Napa Cabs to be, but it's got some nice body and mouthfeel to it. I would guess it's hard to come by.
As far as purchasing it, or?
Yeah, I mean mailing lists, some retail.
Yeah, so this wine has been released, and currently it is sold out. I have some left I keep for library wine.
Right.
I like to keep wines that I think can age well, and I want to start releasing in 5 to 10 year increments.
Yeah.
But yeah, this wine unfortunately is sold out, but I will be releasing the 100% 18 Cabernet Sauvignon soon, and that is really delicious as well. And again, the 19 I don't have anymore because of the fire.
Right.
So looking forward to continuing to work with this vineyard in the future.
Go
I
ahead.
made a Chenin Blanc from this vineyard too. That made
the old Durney vineyard.
Yes, Massa Estate.
Massa, yeah, very cool. When's that going to be around?
Well, I again lost it in 19, but I'll make more in 2021. There was fires next to the vineyard in last year, so nothing in 2020, 2019, but 2021, the future is bright.
Yeah. Going back to wine and food pairing, what do you see as a great pairing with a wine like this?
What's great about this wine is it has the tannins and acid to go with a lot of foods, but it also has that light, fruity element to it. So, I mean, this wine you could really have with a delicious chicken dish, or like five spice chicken would be amazing with it. You could do a steak. I think it could handle a steak.
I was going to say steak, burger, salmon, chicken.
Oh, really?
It's that versatile. I think this would be fine with, a grilled salmon with spice or, sauce. You got to pair it to the sauce. I think it's interesting in that sense. It's not that, monolithic Napa Cab. It's a little more interesting.
Yeah, a burger would be great with it too.
Yeah. So that's the 2018 Massa Vineyard, Monterey County Claret Bordeaux blend. All right, Jaimee, we got to wrap up. I told you things would go quickly. Let me do a quick wrap up, and I just want to get some info from you for our listeners. So if you have a question, suggestion, wine happening, or event, hit me up at sam@thegrapenation.com. That's sam@thegrapenation.com. Subscribe to the Grape Nation podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your pods. Just take a second and hit that subscribe button, and the show, Jaimee, will appear in your bedroom Wednesday night. Follow us on Facebook at The Grape Nation. On Instagram, we're at SBenRuby. On Twitter, we're at BenRuby, but you can always use the hashtag The Grape Nation on both. We're trying to build a community on Clubhouse, so follow us at BenRuby there. As I mentioned, we will post Jaimee's wine list with some cool recos. And I will also give you info on our weekly wine sip, which was the Masa that we just tasted, on our social media sites. Jaimee, I'm sure people were intrigued by our conversation and are now like, where do I go to find out more? Where do I get these wines? You know, what is she talking about? So if we want to find you and your wines on social media and the internet, tell me the best places to go.
Absolutely. You can find me on Instagram at Jaimee Motley Wines.
Easy. Two E's in Jaimee.
Yes. And my website is JaimeeMotleyWines.com, and Jaimee is spelled Jaimee.
Right.
So that's the best way to find me. You can also find my wines through Skurnik in New York,
right,
in California, and Craft Wine Co. in Colorado. So,
what about Stony Hill? StonyHillVineyards.com
yes.
Or Stony Hill? Okay.
Yes, StonyHillVineyards.com is our website. You can come visit us and taste with myself or Lori, our state director. And we'll be making our first vintage this year in 2021. So really looking forward to working with these grapes finally.
Well, congratulations on that. Good luck on that. You know, hopefully you'll get, grounded and your feet going, on Jaimee Motley. It's been a very trying year in certain senses, but Leon was born, so it's been great in other senses last year.
Yes.
So we're looking forward to that. I hope one day to see you in person in the vineyards. We try to get out to Napa almost every year, but not lately because of everything.
Right.
I hope to see and taste everything. All right. Thank you to our guest, Jaimee Motley. Thank you to our engineer, Amanda, and everyone at the Heritage Radio Network. I'm Sam BenRuby, and you've been listening to The Grape Nation. The Grape Nation is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. For our freshest content, subscribe to our newsletter. Enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with us on Instagram and Twitter at heritage_radio. You can also find us at facebook.com/Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization driving conversations to make the world a better, fairer, more delicious place. And we couldn't do it without support from listeners like you. Want to be part of the food world's most innovative community? Subscribe to the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join the HRN family by becoming a member. Just click on the beating heart at the top right of our homepage. And thanks for listening.